The Sword in the Stone, the epic legend of Merlin and King Arthur. In the days of ancient Britain, the winds carried stories of a mystical and time-worn prophecy. The kingdom was in chaos. A great ruler had fallen with no heir to claim his throne. Bitter rivalries broke out among knights and lords, who wrestled for power, each hoping to seize the crown. The land was fragmented, its people divided, its hope fading into shadows. But amid the turmoil, whispers began to spread. At the very heart of Britain, in a forgotten courtyard overgrown with ivy, stood a mysterious stone. Set within it was a gleaming sword, untarnished by the decay of the world around it. Below it, etched in ancient runes, the words spoke clear and firm. Whoso pulls this sword from the stone is the rightful king of Britain. The simplest of statements, yet it carried the weight of destiny. Knights, generals, and warriors, far and wide, gathered before the stone, each one confident they could free the blade. One after another, they stepped forward, grasped the hilt, and failed. Over time, the sword and its promise became a spectacle, a legend whispered across taverns, but for many, just a story with no champion to fulfill it. Unbeknownst to the people, the kingdom's savior had already been chosen. A humble boy, miles away from the turmoil of power struggles, carried a destiny greater than he could ever imagine. In a quiet village, hidden from the eyes of greedy lords and scheming nobles, young Arthur lived a life of simplicity. He was no prince nor heir, but merely a foster child under Sir Ector's care. While his elder foster brother Kay trained to become a knight, Arthur fetched water, tended horses, and dreamed of adventure beyond the humble walls of his home. What Arthur did not yet know was that his life was being closely watched by an old man cloaked in shadows and mystery. Merlin the Wizard, a man of profound wisdom and unmatched magical power, had been waiting years for this very boy. For Merlin knew what Arthur did not. The boy was the answer to Britain's struggles, destined to rise as king and unite the fractured kingdom. When the time was right, Merlin began to guide Arthur. Through riddles and lessons disguised as everyday tasks, Merlin subtly shaped the young boy into a leader, teaching him patience, compassion, and courage.
The greatest kings,
Merlin once whispered,
are not those born to power, but those who earn it.
But destiny would soon interrupt the boy's quiet life in a way no one could foresee. The day began as any other, with Arthur accompanying his foster brother Kay to a knightly tournament. Kay realized in his haste he had forgotten his sword, a critical embarrassment for any knight. Desperate to save him from shame, Arthur ran off in search of a replacement. His frantic search led him to that very courtyard where the sword in the stone awaited. For years, villagers and travelers had passed by it, marveling at its beauty, pondering its mystery. But Arthur, unaware of its legend, approached out of sheer necessity. He thought little of the glowing blade or the inscription below it. He grasped the hilt with both hands and gave a firm pull. A gasp silenced the world as a boom echoed through the air. Arthur staggered back, the ancient sword now in his grasp. Across the distance, the sound carried to the tournament grounds, drawing knights, nobles, and crowds to the scene. It was impossible. A mere boy had accomplished what hundreds of the strongest men had failed to do. Yet the sword glowed in his hands, responding to its rightful king. Voices rose with disbelief and outrage. How can a boy claim the throne? This is treachery. But Merlin, arriving like a shadow at Arthur's side, confirmed the truth.
He is the one,
the wizard declared.
He is Britain's king.
Though raised in simplicity, Arthur quickly embraced the responsibility of leadership. With Merlin's guidance, he began to restore peace to the kingdom, uniting lords and peasants alike. As his first act as king, Arthur founded Camelot, a kingdom built on the ideals of justice, honor, and loyalty. To secure his vision, Arthur assembled a council of warriors who shared in his ideals, the Knights of the Round Table. No king sat at its head. Its circular design symbolized equality, where every knight's opinion carried weight. Among its most famous members were Lancelot, the noble champion, Percival, the knight of purity, and Gawain, a beacon of loyalty. Together, they pledged themselves to protecting Camelot and upholding righteousness. But shadows lingered even beneath the bright walls of Arthur's dream. For years, Camelot thrived under Arthur's reign. The legend of the Knights of the Round Table grew as they embarked on daring adventures. They fought ferocious invaders, vanquished sorcerers, and above all, sought the legendary Holy Grail, said to grant divine wisdom. The quest tested not only their physical strength, but also their moral character. Few knights returned unchanged. Some grew stronger and wiser, while others faltered, weighed down by their failures or desires. Arthur himself faced challenges beyond the battlefield. His growing love for Guinevere became both a source of joy and vulnerability. For within his trusted circle, Lancelot, his greatest knight, also harbored feelings for the queen. Though the ideals of the Round Table were noble, human flaws could not be kept at bay. Whispers of dissent crept among the knights. Old rivalries and hidden loyalties began to fester. By the time Lancelot and Guinevere's forbidden love came to light, Camelot's unity had already begun to fracture. Arthur's heartbreak was not solely in their betrayal, but in the kingdom's unraveling. How could he lead when his closest allies in honor had failed him in loyalty? The Round Table split, knights taking sides, and what once stood as an unbreakable fellowship began to crumble. But Camelot's greatest threat was yet to appear: Mordrid. Born of betrayal and destined for vengeance, Mordrid emerged from Arthur's past to claim his father's kingdom. Ambitious and cunning, he built an army to rival the knights, feeding on their broken unity. He challenged Arthur's right to Camelot, declaring himself the true heir. The land that Arthur had spent years unifying was suddenly torn apart again, this time by civil war. In the ruins of once thriving fields and villages, the final battle loomed, each side prepared to fight until only one remained. On the battlefield of Camelot, the air grew thick with despair. Arthur, clad in armor and wielding Excalibur, the enchanted blade gifted by the Lady of the Lake, stood as Britain's champion once more. With Merlin's warnings echoing in his mind, he inspired his remaining knights to fight for the soul of Camelot. Mordred rode at the head of his army, his presence commanding fear. Through clashing swords and cries of war, Arthur's forces fought valiantly. The suspense reached its zenith as father and son faced each other in an epic duel. Each swing of their blades was filled with unspoken pain, regret, and determination. At last, Arthur struck Mordred a fatal blow, but at an unspeakable cost. Mordred's final attack pierced through Arthur's armor, dealing a mortal wound to the king. In his final moments, Arthur, battered and broken, ordered his faithful knight Bedivere to return Excalibur to the lake. As the battle's dust settled, the kingdom mourned its fallen king. But Arthur's story was far from over. Legends tell that his body was carried away to the mystical Isle of Avalon, where he would heal, and one day return when Britain needed him most. Camelot faded into myth, its ideals of unity, honor, and sacrifice enduring even after its walls crumbled. No ruler since has stood as tall as King Arthur, no knightly order as great as the Round Table. Yet the legend remains, immortal and unyielding, a reminder that even in the darkest times, heroes can rise. This is the legend of the sword in the stone, Merlin and King Arthur. A story of a boy who became a king, of bravery and betrayal, and of a kingdom built on the dream of a better world. Will it ever truly end? Or will the once and future king rise again? The choice, as the legend suggests, is not ours, but destiny's.